Muy buenos días a todos, ¿me escuchan?
Sí,
Buenos
buenos
días.
días.
Buenos días. Ahora.
Para los que están online, recuerden que las tecnologías se van a estar sometiendo the beginning of this month for being presentation will going to be offered English, but again, any questions for those online and also for those who are present. If you want to ask any questions in Spanish or problem, switch back and forth. There will be a copy of the presentation itself as well as we are recording, so those that are here will have access to the recording. So the idea is basically if you do have your tablets or your laptops, turn those on so that you'll be ready to actually go through the process of actually creating at least one notebook and then seeing what else you can do with it. I do have a number of slides, and if anybody wants a copy of that, no problem. So ask me this. I see there's more folks coming in. Okay, so again, any questions, and those that are online, any questions? Can be on the chat. So any questions there, and they those anytime during the presentation, you can ask any questions. Okay, so NotebookLM, where do we go to find it? So if you already have your laptops on, I suggest you go to notebooklm.google.com. That's set up. And it is a Google product. It is an active and it's a specialized research tool. It's basically a really good study tool. And it becomes, at some point, as you gather more resources, it does become your personalized knowledge management system. So why use it? Since it's grounded on sources that you add to your notebook, then the hallucinations that are usually coming up with other generative AI tools is either very little or non-existent. And also it brings together sources that are important to you and relevant to you in your coursework and your research project, et cetera. And those sources can be of various formats, and we'll see those in a bit. And also it gives you the flexibility to create these different outputs for your course. So it's going to interact with your sources. It's going to generate the responses solely on those sources that you add within your notebook. It identifies connections, and we'll see some of the reports and things that can be done with that, but it does identify connections and things and relationships with concepts within resources. It adapts right to your uploaded content because it makes the answers more relevant because you are adding only a particular amount of resources. It also provides citations and clicks to the links where the answers are coming from your sources, so you know where the answer is coming from. And in that way, it makes this particular kind of tool, this Gen AI tool, a bit more trustworthy than other ones for your scholarly and academic work. So right now, they've made a few changes. Anyone that's 13 and older can use it and create your account. So that's a nice thing for those that are in high school and beyond. You do need to have, you have a personal one, but in order to use it here, you should use your campus email, which is your school account. In terms of content and copyright, it is important to understand that as students here, as faculty, you should not upload anything that's copyrighted within NotebookLM. It is supposed to be private, but because of copyright issues and license agreements that we have with databases, that shouldn't be uploaded. But you have other sources that are open access that you can upload. So avoid uploading any documents.
Speak louder.
Okay, so avoid uploading any documents that are copyrighted. It is private. So the information that you add is private for you and your educational use. And the sharing that you do with those notebooks is also restricted within your system itself. There is mobile accessibility, so the mobile version is available. So I highly recommend you also uploading and installing that app. But the features are a bit limited with that version. Sorry. This is the plan that we have right now that our campus has. So that plan itself, you can have 100 notebooks. Pretty good. And each of the notebooks upload 50 sources for each one. And it does have a certain amount of limitation with regards to how many words those sources can have. In this case, it's the maximum is 500,000. You can ask 50 questions. Louder?
Yes.
So 50, you can ask 50 questions per day. You have 3 audio overviews that you can do of your sources and also 3 video overviews. You can create 10 reports and quizzes, so that also is important. The paid versions, and that would be something that would be, but that of course, obviously, like it with other Gen AI tools, has a little bit more. The kinds of formats, so it does have quite a number of formats, audio files, you can copy and paste and edit those as well. Google Docs, Google Slides, text, PDF. So there's quite a number of formats that NotebookLM allows you to upload. So the audio overviews and video overviews are something that's pretty new. The video overviews is the newest one. There's also a join. So there's an interactive mode within there where you can join and interject and ask a question. There's also briefing docs. So those that want to kind of synthesize that, what you're doing, your work, your research, your classwork, and you are asked to present the topic to your professor or in a meeting with an advisor. The briefing docs are good for that. The mind map, that's nice for those that have, that it's easier for them to understand the concepts of a particular topic visually, create a mind map for you. And the flashcards also, those with the questions and the answers, you can go testing yourself with them, you can create flashcards. And not only that, but it has the option of explaining it. So in addition to answering the question, if you click on the it will explain and go through like what they call a deep dive into that particular topic. So it'll explain why that is the correct answer. So if everyone is at notebooklm.google.com, you can then log in. Okay, so I'll just give everyone a few minutes to do that. And those that are here, the GRIC Wi-Fi is there. If you want to use that. Those that are online, if there are any questions, so once you log in, you usually get a window like this, right? Screen. And it welcomes you, and then you can start adding your notebooks. So just let me know if everybody is there. We'll give you 1 minute. Oh, okay.
And would the address again? The address?
It's notebooklm.google.com.
Está en la red de GRIC o está en la red de
And there's a Greek Wi-Fi if someone needs to
chica.
connect.
Los que estén confrontando problemas aquí dentro del GRIC se dan directamente a la red de nosotros para que tenga mejor conectividad.
And you'll notice that when you go in, it will ask you to sign in with your campus account. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Once you sign into your campus account, then you get that two-step verification, two-step authentication page. And that's where you put only your users. Okay, so the first one is your entire email, complete email, but then the second one, that's the authentication page, the two-step one, and that's just for your username and password. And then you should be able to finally get to the actual page itself. I'll just give everyone a few minutes. I'm sorry if the Wi-Fi is a little iffy, glitchy. So while we're waiting, those that are here and also those that are online, has anyone used NotebookLM before? And you have, okay, you have?
Yeah.
And what was the experience like?
Actually, a very good experience. Has been much more better than other web pages for me, at least. Helps me study a lot and to like synthesize the information.
And you created the notebooks.
Yeah, for a lot of my classes, it helps a lot, at least for me.
Anyone else? Anyone or anyone online that has used it? So I think we all should be here already, right? So once you are in your NotebookLM page itself, once you're there, you should probably check out the setup page. So you'll notice that on the top left corner, you'll always see the symbol of NotebookLM. And you'll notice also that you can switch between viewing and a list. Okay, so is everyone there? And also for the titles, once you start adding more notebooks, then you can order them either by the most recent or by title of the notebook. You can also choose your output language, and it has more than 80 languages. You can choose a light or dark mode. So all of that is within the settings themselves. And the chat option, you can configure it. That's something that's also new. It was only for the paid version. Now with the free version, you can also configure your the chat. So you can choose how you want that particular chat to be answered. So if you're in the chat, right, of your first notebook, you'll notice the little 3 lines, and that's where you can configure your chat. And then, and this was something that has just recently been added, so you can configure it. You can say that you want it to be a learning guide, or you can also just customize it and say, I want you to be a tutor, I want you to be a high school teacher, I want you to be a guide. Yes.
En el chat están indicando que el screen se ve distinto. No, parece que es cuando se lo guiaron que se ve distinto a lo presentado en la presentación. Asher, puede abrir el micrófono también para quizás si otra persona también está teniendo el mismo problema. Sí, creo que se te refiere a directamente cuando están logueándose. Allá, no a la presentación.
Ahora sí parece,
Sí, lo ven
pero
bien.
solo
Prosigan.
que estuve
So
como,
then here, if you click on the custom for the chat itself, you can put a chat, you can create the kind of person or role that you want. So that's also something that will affect the way the administrators are doing that. And also the response length you want to default is a short length, you want it a little longer, you can also ask for it to give you a bit more detail if you answer something. So this is a quick screenshot of my, and then we will go into that one now so you can see that. But as you add more of your notebooks, you'll notice, right, that each of them will give you kind of like this card, little panels with the title and how many sources. So you know how many sources you can add to them or how many you want to read. The maximum, remember, is 50 per notebook. Okay, so these are just examples. So the adding itself, there's various ways of adding the sources. So when you first go into your first notebook, it will ask you to begin adding sources. So one way to do it is if you have your Google Workspace, and since you are already logged into your campus account, then you will have access to your Google Workspace and your Google Drive. So you can copy from there and drag those in. You can also add links, websites, and also YouTube videos. The YouTube videos have to be public videos. And here you can add or copy or paste text. So if you are in a classroom and you are taking notes from the classroom and you upload that, let's say, into Google Drive, or you have that in a document, you can copy and paste that text here, or you can upload sources directly that you might have on your local drive. The other nice thing that it has now is that it has the discover sources. So that is another way to upload. So that one is a nice way. If you don't have any sources at the moment to add, in addition to, let's say, your notes from your class, you can then ask it to do the discovery for you for a particular topic. So this is another nice option. So when we add videos, and it appears in your panel, I'll show you the panels real quick here. Once you add the videos, it will have a little link to the video itself. And right underneath the video, you are going to see a transcript of the video, the entire transcript, which is a nice thing. So I would recommend, if it's in English and you would prefer reading it in Spanish or some other language, then if you click on the title and you copy the entire transcript, you can take a translator, like say Grisell, there's many other translators, Google Translate also, and then you can translate it into Spanish, etc. So for those that are looking for particular, let's say maybe other GenAI tools that can translate and give you the transcript of the video, this one does it already automatically for you. That's a nice feature within Google NotebookLM. So the discover sources, the nice thing about this, there are many databases that are now adding this. JSTOR is one of them. So the databases are now going from the traditional keyword-based search into what's called a more semantic or conceptual search. So when you do these particular searches within the discover sources in NotebookLM, it is going to do through the Gemini AI powered tool that it has a semantic search instead of just a keyword search. So the idea is that the keywords or the question that you are asking within the discover sources, the semantic search is going to look up the concepts related to that particular question. So not all of the responses will be matched exclusively by keywords, but rather by what is the meaning behind that particular question. So that means that the information is a little more relevant. And it does give you, what it does is Gemini AI will go through the internet and will search for those semantic searches and results and give you 10 of the best ones that they understand will be answering the question. And then you can choose from those which ones you would like to add to your list of sources. So the websites, if you want to add many, just put them all in one line itself, each one separately by one. Okay. So let's look quickly here, and then I'm going to go into mine. So the idea behind the notebook is that it has 3 panels. So the first one is the source panel, then you have the chat panel, the studio panel. So the source panel will have all of your sources. That's your input. And then the chat panel, which is in the middle, that is where you have your queries. That's where your sources will be used to answer your questions. And it also has suggested questions. So you can add questions yourself, but it also suggests questions according to the sources you're providing. And then on the left, you have the studio panel. That's where kind of the magic happens. That's going to be your problem. Okay, so that's where you can create your reports. That's where you create the audio overview, the video overview. So this is what the source panel looks like when it's empty. And as you add them, remember you can add directly, or you can just go to Discover and then ask the question. And these are a few tips here. So this one in particular, and I'm going to show you that one, is one I did for 3D printing and academia. And in this case, each of the sources can be renamed. You can remove them, but you can also rename them. So this is a nice moment, right, when you are creating your notebooks, to put them in a particular kind of order. So use a file naming system so you don't have text and websites and PDFs and videos and audios all in one mix. What you do is that you create your own filing system. This is just an example. And then you'll have them in a bit better order. So visually you can see which is a PDFs, text, etc. So that's just a little tip for that. The chat panel itself is also completely run by Gemini AI. And until now, this might also change because this is something that's going on in the forums. Every time you open up one of your notebooks, that chat information, that first summary tends to disappear. So I would highly recommend saving it, and there is a function to save it as a note. So if you have here, when you have in the middle, your chat panel, you can change these emojis or icons. So you can put your own kind of icon to it, and you can also change the title of the actual notebook itself. Here, this is where I recommend that you save if you want this as a note, and then that note, add it back into your source. So you can also have that summary as a source. And here is where you start typing, but it also has suggested questions, which is nice because sometimes, you get all of this information. You're not really sure, what is it that you want to ask, and you can then go ahead and choose one of these, and it will then create an answer using only that which is provided, the source for it. Any questions so far? And if it does not find the answer to your question because it is not provided within the sources, it will actually let you know. So that's also something that's nice. It's not going to hallucinate or create something else because you did not add that information within your source. So that's also another way of knowing that it's trustworthy, it's reliable, because it's only using the sources that you add. So again, I recommend saving them. You don't have to, but it'd be nice to have them if you're going to use them, especially since this is still not something that's by default. And the studio panel, this is what you will see on the right-hand side. So you have audio, review, video, you have reports, and we'll look at each of these separately. But let's go into the actual one that I've done. I've done a few. And if there's anyone with any questions, just let me know. Okay, so I am now sharing. And let me know if everybody sees that one. Everyone online see that one? So once you begin to add your notebooks, okay, remember you have 100 notebooks that you can add. And each of them, you can add 50 sources. So this one, for example, it tells you when you created it and how many sources you have. So once you click there, you'll notice here are the sources that it's using to answer any questions that you have here. And I have already created here. See if it. I don't know if you'll be able to hear that or not. No, we don't, the sound is not coming through, right?
Tiene tu micrófono. Lo tengo apagado en la-
Okay, let's see if maybe. Can everybody hear that?
Un buen ejemplo.
So basically. So basically what I did, once I had added my sources and I had the summary here and I chose some of these suggested questions, I asked it to create, right, in my studio. It's back down. You see that? I asked it to create an audio overview, but here, each of these, it has a little pencil. That means that you can edit it and you can customize it. So in this case, when I did the customization, this is the audio, I can ask it to do a long one, a shorter one. And here's where I chose the language. So it has over 80 plus languages. So the default will always be in English at this point, but I asked it to do a was Spanish in Spanish Mexico one. I've also had to do a Spanish Latino America one. I'm not sure what the difference is, but the one that the one that I just did right now was the Mexico one, right? So, okay. And I think it did a pretty good job. So those that have a hard time sitting reading and reading and reading and reading, which you should always do, if you want to get a summary of those sources through the video, and the video overview is basically a basic PowerPoint presentation where the person, it creates the PowerPoint presentation and the person in the language that you chose will begin to discuss those sources for you. Okay, so did everyone see that? Those that have used it, have you back there, you mentioned that you used the NotebookLM, have you done video?
I have done the audio one.
Oh, okay, the audio one. So the video one is a nice one because visually it creates. You can then download that and use that as well and keep that. Within your notebook. So that's a nice, but I like the fact that you can switch and customize it and tell it that you want it. So with the video overview, let's see, this was the editing here, and here again is the language. And then you can also, and this is a nice feature, and I think those that are going to use a video overview, you can customize it and you can tell it that you want it to focus on a particular source or a particular theme or concept. So does anyone have any questions regarding the video overview? on, right, each of these, and we'll look at some of those also that are created within the panels. So the panel options, so you've got the audio reviews, it's going to generate a podcast, so two people talking, yes.
En el chat está escribiendo si puede hacer un ejemplo de para que las personas vean el proceso como tal.
Oh.
Y si puede hacer un mind map. también.
Yes, I'm gonna show them, let me go through this, and I'm gonna show them mind map, and then I'm gonna quickly. So the audio, you generate the podcast, the two hosts are speaking, and you can now join, so you can ask the actual speakers, the host, a question. And it'll delay a bit, but then they have to gather the information, the sources, and then answer that particular question. The only thing is that when you do that, that particular podcast, when you download it, and it's gonna be downloaded in MP3, it will not download that section where you join. It only downloads the original audio only. That is something also that's being discussed in forums, and maybe back joining where your voice comes in might at some point change, but right now, the download is only to the video overview, as you saw, okay, it creates a PowerPoint and then the person speaking. So there's mind maps, there's reports, there's flashcards, there's quizzes, and then each of those can be customized. So here's what the audio overview will do. Again, only the original host will be, and then this one here, you'll notice that it'll have this little hand as if you're raising your hand, so that indicates that that's where you can join in. What I highly recommend is don't delay, so you should have your question ready. What is it that you want to ask the host? So that once you click that, if there is a delay, it will not answer the question. So the moment you click join, immediately ask the question. That's the only tip I get. The video overviews we saw, example that I gave, like one in Spanish, it has the PowerPoint slide. And now let's go into the actual. Again, and here, I am going to create from the sources here. So you can choose to remove some of the sources, but in order to create your mind map. And so here you'll see that it's already creating the mind map. And sometimes depending on how many sources you have, it might take a little longer. Okay. So while that is going on, I'm going to go back to the presentation itself. So while it's generating the mind map, the quizzes, the nice thing about the quizzes, you can change the name, the title of the quiz, and then it will give you the actual questions, and then you choose if it's the correct answer, you say correct, why it's correct. If it's not, it will also explain why it's not correct. The mind map, I did a notebook, let's say the Greek and Roman empires, and then I created, I asked to create a mind map, and it's a nice way to visually see. It's a branch diagram, so at the very end, when you click the actual resource, it brings you back to a source and it asks that question. So this is a mind map that I did, Google NotebookLM, the research and note-taking tool, and then it starts branching out into the main concept, and it continues branching out. And then each of these, if you click on them, these last ones, it'll bring you back to the chat panel, and that chat panel will answer that question regarding that particular concept. So this is another way for those that it's more helpful to visually see what the concepts are. And this is also a nice way for you to create maybe an outline of what you would like to talk about in the presentation. So, any questions about that one? Mind map. So those that were asking to see the mind map, this is one that. So let's look at, mind map. and I asked you to do.
Good morning. I have a question.
So there is the mind map of this Greco-Roman civilization, culture, and more. Again, these can all be changed. So the nice thing is that as you begin to click on each of these, okay, will open up more concepts. And then let's say here rivalry and alliances. And here rivalry tends to be long-lasting. And here, that very last one, it creates that as a question, and then it will give me that particular stuff in the back. So, any questions there? Or the person online that wanted to know about the mind map? What do you think so far of the NotebookLM? Think it would be helpful in classes? Yes.
Tengo una pregunta. Cuando hacen el clic en este último enlace, busca información en los documentos que
En los documentos, correcto. Sí, de ese concepto, porque el mind map es creado con los conceptos de todos. Si son 5 los que escogió, solamente esos 5. Si son los 10, los concepts there. Any other questions, Spanish or English? Yes.
Excuse me, I think like, because my first time running these programs, I didn't know it was difficult. But I do have a question about the name dots. You said LM, what it means? What does LM mean?
I believe it's language model, notebook language model.
Okay, so I would like to have a general idea of this. I got what you said. If I'm not wrong, the idea of using this tool is technically up your, let's say, your sources, the information that you have, and put it there, and then chat. It's a way that you can study things that you need to study, ask questions,
Yes.
names, ideas. And the studio part is to help yourself or to help other about the information or something, or
The studio potter is just another way to create an output, a transformative output of your sources. So you just have your sources, PDF, videos, audios, and then you have the questions that you ask in the chat panel, but then the actual studio panel will create, let's say, if for you it's easier to visualize the concepts in a mind map, it'll create a mind map for you. If it's easier for you to hear a discussion about those particular sources, it'll create an audio overview for you or a video overview. So that's the idea, but it always stays grounded in your source. So it's think of the studio panel as just options of doing the exact same thing, those sources, but transforming them into something different for you to learn. So there are folks that learn easier with concepts, there are folks that learn easier hearing something. So that's the idea of the studio.
to be sure the outputs totally depends on the sources.
The sources and the sources, you can play around with them. You can say, okay, I want an audio overview of only the 10 sources that I have, or I want a video overview only of these 3 sources. So you decide what sources you want to create those outputs with. And you can continue adding up to the limit, which in this case, the free plan is 50.
Thank you so much for the
Sure. Any other questions?
Back to the textbook that you use in
Yeah,
that are
unfortunately,
open source.
if they are open source, yes, you are free to upload those to chapters, etc. You can, and like I said, the file naming system, if you want to do a file naming system where you can let the students know which are the ones that you're going to be adding and give them a name so that they know. So it's not just, a whole bunch of PDFs, etc. But yes, if it's an open educational resource, yes. And I did contact our companies, license agreements, and our library subscriptions. Unfortunately, you can link them to your Moodle. Those you can do. You can link our library subscription ebooks to your Moodle. That's no issue. That is part of the licensing, but you can't add them to NotebookLM. Any other questions? Oh, yeah. Yes.
Si Google ofrece una lista de académicos consultados, imagino algo así, pues no sé, mira, están 50, 100 personas, no sé, académicos, me refiero no académicos en el sentido de ciencia de cómputo, sino en el sentido de humanidades, ciencias sociales, ciencias naturales, académicos.
Como un listado de personas que son.
Sí, sí, como consultor.
Pues fíjese, ya usted tiene una idea para un notebook. Usted puede preguntar en el chat panel eso en el idioma español y lo más probable es que y le puede indicar errores que usted quiere para esa pregunta y también si es global, si es solamente en una área pero si son personas académicas que solamente hablan español y inglés o otro idioma. So, esa pregunta ya usted puede crear un mensaje que aparezca nombre porque ya académico. Pero dígame uno que quizás pueda darle un poquito más de información sobre eso. Sí, que si quiere me puede enviar el email para contestarle un poquito. ¿Alguna otra? Sí.
I put a source in one of my presentation in PDF in Spanish.
Okay.
And create a chat in English and a quiz in English. Can I change?
You can also change it to Spanish. Yes, you can tell it that you want to change it to Spanish, or you can use, like the example I had Grisell to do the translation and then upload that copy of that translation there.
Okay.
So that's also another
Program, I can tell her the program do it in Spanish.
in Spanish, right?
Okay, I will send
I think we're still good on time, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we saw the mind map that we created of this particular one, and here I wanted to show you here's the filing. Here's the 3D printing one. Okay, and here's the filing system. So I put all of these and just added PDF in front of those. Those that are text, I added text and then videos with videos. And then the ones that were websites, I added websites. So here, if I click on this one video, this is something that I had mentioned before. You'll have a quick summary of it. You'll have the video itself embedded there. You don't have to go. And also, here is the entire transcript. So that entire transcript can be copied, use devel, translate it to Spanish, copy it, and you can add it as a source in Spanish. And then if you want to make a mind map in Spanish, then this is another nice feature that it has. Let's go back to presentation. And hopefully everyone can see that. So every time in the reports part, so the studio panel, it's audio, video overview, it has mind maps. So the reports itself, they have a briefing guide, you have a study guide, you have blog posts. So if you are, creating something that you would like to announce, like to have those sources as part of the blog post, you can do that. And you can also create your own. And this is a nice feature because at the beginning, about a few months ago, timeline and frequently asked questions, which were used a lot, were removed. But NotebookLM, one of its discussion forums, the one that they have on X, formerly Twitter, added 2 quick prompts that you can use to create the timeline and frequently asked questions if you want. So you don't know if those are going to come back as default reports, but there is a way around it, and I do have that on the slide. So we'll look at those. So this is the Earl, and I'll have a link to that so you can go to it. But these are the 2 that they suggest for frequently asked questions and for the timeline. So that's the prompt that you use to create those within one of the reports. And every time you create a report, depending on the sources, each of those reports will give you different suggested reports. So this is one that I found from someone else that created one of these notebooks. And I thought, okay, let's see, the invention of the light bulb and what are the reports that it suggests. And it's different from the ones that I use, let's say, for the Greek Roman Empire. So that's also nice, but it kind of thinks about conceptually what your topic is about. And will conceptually then give you suggested types of reports that might be more relevant to your topic. So the study guide, that's another one that's part of the report. You're going to get a review quiz. You'll get an answer key for the review quiz. You're going to get essay questions that you can answer and a glossary of terms. So this is a really nice way of getting, right, an entire list of sources into one nicely fit study guide. So if I click on quiz, it'll give me the quiz and then the little short answers, so you can study that way. If you click on the answer key, it will give you the answers, so you can do the quiz and then see if you can answer it correctly. The essay questions, it gives suggestions of what kind of essay questions could come up within your class, and this is really nice, the glossary. So each of the concepts within all of the sources, it gives you the definition of each one. So that's also a nice feature that it has. And the create your own, this is a nice one, especially for the frequently asked questions, which is on the timeline. So I did one for the Greek Roman Empire one. So I asked it to do this timeline using exactly the prompt that it gave, and then substituting the actual key concepts. And here is, right after I added the prompt, and I'll show you that in the one that I did. Here is the actual timeline, right, that it gave me. So of all the sources that I added, it gave me the information of the years. Okay, and then one of the things that you can do is you can use other Gen AI tools, like for example, Napkin AI is one, and it's a free tool. And what it can do is that it can create a visualization of that timeline that you just created in NotebookLM. So I asked it to do a timeline, a visualization of that timeline. This is what it gave me, right, of the actual foundations itself. And then I asked it to do one of the main characters. So the timeline will give you the actual chronological dates, but it also gives you who are the main characters within all of the sources. And so this is what Napkin did, so that you can copy it and present it in, let's say, a presentation that you want to do, a briefing that you want to do with that topic. Has anyone ever used Napkin AI? Okay. So this is it has its limits. You have to wait. I think it updates it every week or something, the amount that you can use. But this is a nice way of combining NotebookLM with another Gen AI tool, and you don't have to pay for any of them. If you use elicit, consensus, perplexity, others, this is an example. I'm not going to go through that, but this is one that I put in the actual presentation for you to use. So you can use these generative AI tools, right? More information and begin creating your knowledge base, right? Your sources. And then those particular resources, you can then export them into a citation management tool like Sorbero or Mendeley. And then those references, you can copy them and then add them, upload them into your notebook. So you'll have those from all of these particular Gen AI tools. So has anyone used any of these types of tools to search for, let's say, literature review or sources? Remember, these tools, perplexity, elicit, consensus, many others, they are based on the scholarly metadata from most open access sources. So they'll use Semantic Scholar, they'll use Open Alex, they'll use our core, they'll use learning.org. So those are all databases basically of open access. So then they feed off of that to answer your question. So that's another way to gather. So if you don't want to use the discover sources option from NotebookLM, you could use these free Gen AI tools and then from download them into Sorbero, and then from Sorbero create a bibliography and add that into NotebookLM. Any questions about that? Now questions, I can help out with that. And public notebooks right now, since the inception of notebooks. There are over 140,000 that have been created. So anyone who views them can actually edit them first time, because you can ask it questions and it'll continue adding more information to it. This is, for example, the one that I did out from engineering and academia. You can add people, but the people that you are sharing it with, the one that we have, the free one for campus, can only be those within the UPR domain. So you can share it with your students, right? The notebook that you created, but no one outside of that domain. So even if you try to share it outside, like I'm gonna try and give it to someone that's got a Gmail account. Well, this is what's gonna come up. You do not have access to do this notebook. And so I already tried it. And to test it out, and that's what you get. So it can be done within, just like the databases as well, you know, when you share, you could only share within the campus, because anyone outside is going to get a login doing that. So some of the examples that I have for professors, I'm going to go quickly through these. You'll have a copy of it. If you're in history, you could upload primary documents, and then you can do a chat and create a timeline of that. You can ask the contrast, right, the different eyewitness accounts, and then all of these, again, you can share them with your students. In biology, maybe you're looking up stuff on cellular respiration. You can upload one of your OER textbook chapters and then create again an explanation of a particular cycle here. So there's different things that you can do. You can create a quiz and then have the students study that quiz with multiple choice. Like you saw the literature one, if you're teaching a course on Shakespeare and you've got a number of plays from open access sources, then you can create what's in mind maps. You can create study guides as well. If you're in law and you're studying, you're teaching about constitutional law, you can then put up some of the digital opinions, right, in open access sources, and then ask it to summarize the dissenting opinions within those particular laws. If you're in business and you're doing a marketing course, you can upload some case studies and then ask it to do, let's say, a SWOT analysis of it, of that marketing strategy. If you're an engineer, you can upload some open access technical manuals and then compare the performance of characteristics and materials, et cetera. So there's different things that can be done, right? And you just have to start creating those notebooks and adding the sources and then asking, right, questions so that then you can create within the studio panel, right? So let's go back to, are there any questions so far? And I'm going a little fast, but I do want everyone to practice. So let's go back to the page itself. And here we have this one. So these here are the notebooks that you create. Here are the ones that are shared. These are the public ones. So those, these are the ones that have been shared publicly. And you can find those links. So here in the actual notebooks, here's where you can look at them as a list, if that's easier for you. And also, if you just want to look at the covers, you can also order it by the title. So that's where you do that. And here, we can create a new one. So has anyone here already created one? Anyone? Did anyone create one?
I created one notebook.
Okay, you created a notebook? Okay. And where, did you use the Discover
No,
sources?
just upload one of my presentations
Okay.
and she
Perfect.
create the
Like a
mind
summary?
map and a quiz.
And what did you think of the mind map? What did it?
Excellent.
Did it actually
Yeah,
extract like main points and
Yeah.
themes from it?
and I did a quiz and the output came in English and I asked her to do it in Spanish. It did in Spanish.
Perfect. Yes.
Very easy.
Question there? No? So for you as a faculty member,
Yeah,
so for you, this would be a nice way to then share that information, or maybe even just have your students create their own notebooks and maybe upload the
Yep.
exact same
I will
information.
try. Can I enroll the students specifically to share with my course groups?
I think you can, I'm not sure how many, I think you can add as many, email addresses when you're sharing. I believe you can add as many and then share it to all, as long as it's UPRW, you can share it to as many as you want, and then they will all have access to the exact same. Any other questions? Anyone else that might have created one? Are you seeing the Discover Sources? So one of the things that, here, if we're gonna create a new one. Right, if I don't have any, thing to add, I can discover here and I can ask it. Any questions? Anyone have any ideas of anything they'd like to discover? Anyone?
Podrán hacer la pregunta que yo tenía.
Let's see, let's ask the question. So academics. And
Consultants,
consultants,
academic consultants.
consultants for, and then for what? What do we want?
In creating, ¿verdad? For creating notebook LM.
Oh, yeah.
Pero esa no es la pregunta. La pregunta es quiénes si había, si hubo consultoría académica para crear el problema. Y entonces quiénes serían. Yo no sé si les interesa, no sé. Bueno,
Importante que se pruebe.
And then what it will do, because it does a semantic search, it will come up with what it understands as the top best sources. And it could be a PDF, it could be a website, it could be a video. And so here we've got something from Forbes, we've got a YouTube interview. We've got, it'll have 10. And one of the things that I highly recommend is just don't grab the 10 and add them to your source. So it does say plan, make, and accuracy. So I highly recommend when you create this, make sure that you go to the site. It does have a link out to each one. So go to the site, look at the site, see if in fact it is in fact actually answering your question. Did that answer the question?
bueno, sí, o sea, es una lista de cuestiones que no puede investigar. ¿No?
Right. And so here, if I click import, see, it has the untitled one. And then here's where you can then add a title to it, which I highly recommend. And then here it's going to give you a summary of that particular. So it might or might not have, and then here are suggestions. So here, if I click on save note, immediately save it here in the studio panel. Once there, I can add it here as another story. That particular answer. These are just quick examples, like for students. So if you're recording, let's say meetings with the professor or the advisor, of course, you have to ask permission first, but you could then upload the MP3 of that particular discussion and then ask it questions like, give me the outcome of this meeting, highlight what I need to do next, what are the key important things that we agreed to do the next time that we meet. So something like that. You can ask that question and then it would answer that. Chat with the reference itself, ask your own questions. Under the reports, you can create a discussion debate. So you can actually ask in the chat panel, I want an audio overview. Host one or speaker one is going to discuss these sources, and host two is going to discuss these other sources in my list of sources, and then they're going to have a debate. And that can also be done.
Grisel, en esa parte habría que también tener cuidado de no subir información sensible, de los datos de las personas.
There is no person that can identify the folks that are speaking. That's all important, because we do want to make sure that we cover privacy issues there. So here are some links. This is the actual LibGuide. So we did create, it's a very simple one. So let me. Over here, so here is this quick LibGuide that I created. Okay, so it has, I'll be adding more information and I'll try to add like some examples with prompts so you can use those. But it's available on our website for the LibGuide for this particular workshop. Okay, so it's got a few videos and tutorials and answering one of your questions, which the Darren and his first video, he's one of the ones that created it. So that would be a good one to add.
Grisel, para los que están en el online, en el chat se colocó el enlace del LibGuide para que puedan ir accediéndolo también y lo puedan guardar en sus bookmarks.
And also, it itself has a blog called Google Keyword and text posts that have very helpful prompts to create each time and create the frequently asked questions, which is now not a default with new, but we cover that through the reports. Okay, so this is my information. So if anyone has questions, is there something that anyone and those online, if there are any other questions, if anybody wants me to go and do, let's say, a quiz or a video or one of the reports. Questions?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
So I think that's mostly what I wanted to present. Are there any questions? Does anyone want to share maybe a notebook that they might have created today? No? Any questions? What I'd like to know is what do you think you'll be doing with NotebookLM if you're going to be using it? You know, the professor said he's uploading some documents and wants to try and share that with his students, but how about the students?
Have limits for video transcription time?
The
free version?
The free, you mean,
The transcript.
you can add up to 50 sources per notebook. So if you have 50 videos as your sources, each of them will have a transcript
In the free version?
in the free version. So that's why it's a nice thing to have, because if you're searching for other tools that are going to offer you the transcript, you can have the transcript there. And the nice thing is that you can copy the entire one, since underneath the video, copy the entire transcript, you can translate it completely into Spanish. Using, for example, Grisell or any other translator that you prefer.
cuando se le añade un webname, ¿él visita solamente esa página o hace recursive? O sea, entra a todos los enlaces de la página.
Entra a la página y está resumiendo el text que aparece de esa página. Sí, porque es un semantic search también, está ubicando los conceptos de esa página.
O sea, que no entra los enlaces que...
Right. Es de ese webpage, ese enlace, todo el text que sea conceptualmente relevante a esa página. So, ese es el link que falta que vale. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? What else are the students going to do with?
Acceso, ¿verdad? De un website que provee la información que uno no puede descargar como tal documento en PDF de recepción. Él sería capaz de leer el website.
Sí, te va a dar un resumen, un summary de ese website. Cuando tú haces, pues, vamos a ver, voy a mostrar. Voy a mostrar unos rapidito para que lo vean. Así tengo. Te da un summary de ese website. Y acá se pueden hacer, ya te va sugiriendo preguntas, ¿no? De ese summary. So you can ask it that question and there's other questions. And then that answer, you can save it as a note and it'll save it here and then you can add it to your sources.
¿Qué problema habría? ¿Verdad? Y con una pregunta, porque hay documentos, libros, por ejemplo, libros que ya se encuentran en PDF online, que están accesibles. ¿Qué problema yo tendría en subir un documento de un libro que tal vez a lo mejor ese libro tiene un copyright?
Ahí, de nuevo, como mencioné al principio, no deben evitar subir documentos que no tienen, don't have copyrights. Y por eso se recomienda Open Educational Resources, Open Access. Y por eso tampoco los libros de las bases de datos por los license agreements tampoco se pueden subir. Estaría violando, ¿no?, el copyright. En este caso sí está subiendo información que viene copyright.
Y si yo preparo mis propias notas, que yo hice un resumen.
Ahí sí, eso que es suyo, eso sí, lo puedes subir a tu Google Docs, entonces hacer un copy y ese, entonces te lo vas a resumir.
Pero ese que yo preparé son extractos, tal vez de esos mismos libros que cité.
No debe ser copy-paste, eso sí, no, sería un resumen suyo de los trabajos. Y entonces eso que es un document, un resumen de esos documentos, eso es your summary, y lo que recomiendo es que cuando lo vayas a copiar, que tengas la referencia de dónde sale, porque eso también, ¿verdad?, va a ayudar en el summary.
Tengo en el chat aquí, utilizo el notebook para la creación de contenido y le enseño a los estudiantes para la utilización eficiente de esta herramienta. Gracias por la información. También tengo, I think it could be a great way to organize thoughts and methods for our thesis projects. También. Online están preguntando por la evaluación. Can you upload the PowerPoint presentations that have animation? Or maybe share.
If they have animation, I believe it's only just a static text. Not sure about that. So if you upload something that has a movement as a PowerPoint, I'm not sure if the animations will do, because I think it's more static and fast. But that could be a good test to do and see what actually happens when you upload the PowerPoint.
Esa pregunta del doctor Boglio, que entonces cualquier cosita pues pueden dialogar. Boglio, si puede entonces enviarle también alguna información a Grisell para que te pueda contestar más de cerca, más al punto. Grisell, si te pueda pegar un poquito el micrófono también para que te escuchen mejor. Yeah. Muchas gracias, thank you, y mucho agradecimiento. ¿Cómo se...? Son preguntas para el CEP, así que CEP, por favor, pues, verifiquen el chat. Ok. Cualquier otra dudita o pregunta la pueden seguir colocando aquí en el chat, que se pueden ver una vez nosotros nos desconectemos para que Grisell pueda también, ¿verdad?, atenderlas. También en pantalla pueden ver la lip call, que son appointments que tenemos a través de la plataforma para que puedan hacer cualquier reunión online con la profesora.
Por correo electrónico.
Una pregunta que no sé si entendí ahorita. Está la cuestión, por supuesto, de hacer copyright, pero la pregunta técnica, o sea, ¿qué uno puede subir? En esto, si el profesor da un material que
Se tiene que subirlo de punto como
y entonces, y por ejemplo, documentos en DOC,
tengo registrado de todo los sources que se pueden subir y los files los file types. Bueno, esos sources y los files eso también de que son varios. ¿Otra pregunta?
Tengo una... Alguien que tiene una mano levantada, si quieren pueden abrir el micrófono, escribir la pregunta en el chat.
Están online y tienen que recibir la notificación del SEP. Recuerden que tienen que haber asistido todas las taller, tienen que haber entrado con el correo institucional, llenar la post-prueba y la evaluación que se publicó ya en el chat. Cualquier duda, ¿verdad? Cualquier inquietud nos pueden escribir al correo electrónico que es sep@upr.edu. Cualquier pregunta, si pueden abrir el micrófono o escribir por el chat. Aquí contestando todo lo que necesiten. Sí. Gracias.
Si alguien más tiene alguna pregunta o algo más que tenían que ser podían ser por NotebookLM. Si ya tienen planes que quieren hacer, what are your plans? What would you like to do with NotebookLM at this point? Everything, want to do everything, okay.
Sí, porque hasta ahora creo entiendo que es de forma gratuita.
Yes. Sí.
Está proveyendo más, no tiene, no escuché en un momento que tuviera time.
No, tiene, llegas al máximo 100 and each of them with 50 sources. So there isn't any, and you can, remove stuff and add other ones if you want. So that's
Otra herramienta gratuita, cuando dicen ya por hoy no puedes usar, no se puede decir.
no, es decir, si llegas a 50 sources hasta ahí,
pero puedo seguir preguntando acerca de los resources que ya subí.
And that's the nice thing, if you have one of the notebooks that has, let's say, the exact limit of 50, you can then say, okay, now I want only a summary of these 10. And then you can ask questions only about these 10 and create a mind map for those 10 and create a study guide for those 10. And then you can do the same thing and say, okay, now these other 10 sources from the same notebook, now I want to ask this other question.
So, ese límite es para un notebook. Yo puedo crear otro notebook con otros 50
libros. And you can create you can have 100 notebooks. And each one with 50 sources. That's all.
Grisell, ¿la presentación se va a compartir o se va a compartir el video?
Si desean tener la presentación, se lo puedo enviar, pero también entiendo que tienen la recording.
El recording va a estar postado en el recording. Y si desea, pues también nos puede enviar por el chat la presentación que siempre está disponible para todos.
Si las personas quieren
presentación.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Espero que esto, ¿verdad? Ya haya despertado un poco más de inquietud. I hope, you know, this will cause more, you know, exploratory, you know, ideas and gather more questions and start reading the. Those that haven't used it, I hope you will learn. Remember, the reason why I wanted to offer this is because it is, you know, available through your campus website. We have the basic plan and the sources that are being used, the questions are only from those sources. It is not going out anywhere else, only the sources. So that's a nice thing. So thank you, everyone. I hope this was good.
Gracias, le exhortamos también a la próxima actividad que tenemos aquí también, es por el CEP, pero va a ser aquí también en el GRIC, que es de DMP2 también. La promoción es